End of the day, I was the winner, all right? I was the winner because as I'm driving home, Carrie pulls up next to me in the car, not realizing she's pulling up next to me with her finger 2 knuckles deep in her nose, just digging. Just digging. So next time you shake her hand, be kind of conscientious about that. Yeah. Whoops. Hey, so we've had a crazy couple of weeks around here. Last week, Jim announced that he's going on sabbatical, which is really exciting for this place, but then also means, hey, that means Cole's going to teach a lot more, so that's why the numbers are down this week for sure. It's definitely not Father's Day. But as we were talking about it, we're like, hey, Cole, you are so skilled with the 2 times that you've taught on stage. Why not put you in the middle of the women's series? That's a really good idea. And Jim and Ben had voiced their nerves around teaching about this, but I don't have any of those because I'm an expert with women. And so, and here's how. So when I was in 6th grade, I was dating this girl, and I used to write her poetry when I was in language arts class, which is pretty impressive, I know. The only line that I remember, though, is when I told her that her eyes reminded me of deep pools of chocolate pudding. It's romantic. It's super romantic. I love pudding, so like it worked, right? But that poetry later led to my my rap career in 8th grade, and we grew up in Broomfield, and our rap group was called B-Town's Finest. We were pretty hardcore. We grew up in a neighborhood called Country Estates, so pretty hardcore. But I started wearing do-rags and FUBU and stuff like that back then because I was convinced that the highly diverse community of Broomfield, Colorado, the girls would love it, you know? So I didn't have a girlfriend for a couple of years. But then in freshman year of high school, I had a crush on this girl, and also at the same time, I weirdly never really changed my socks, ever. And so if I wore a pair of socks, I'd probably put them on the next day, so they were gross. And one day, to be flirtatious and funny, I stole her pencil bag, took my sock off, put my crusty sock in her pencil bag, zipped it up, and stuffed it in her bag. So here I am, just grinning from ear to ear and super excited as she slowly reaches down to her bag, grabs her pencil bag, pulls it up onto the desk, and opens it up as she simultaneously gags and has real, actual throw up in her mouth. She went on a date with me 3 years later, so I think it worked. Then we got to college, and that's when I pierced my ears and wore diamond studs that were bigger than my earlobes. I wore short shirts so that way my Louis Vuitton belts would show in my white slim fit jeans. And I had a mohawk, which for sure all of that landed Taylor. That's how she was hooked, you know? It could have also been the multiple times that she would get dressed for a night out, and she would walk out and say, do I need to change my shirt or anything like that? And I would reply with, no, you look fine. Fine is a very bad word to use when she's asking how she looks. Don't ever do that. But other than that, I'm an expert on women for sure. But all joking aside, I don't understand women completely, but I actually do think I understand people really, really well. And I think both men and women struggle with the question of, am I enough? I think we struggle with that all the time. And I think the story in John 4 that we're going to go through today about the woman that meets Jesus at the well is a great story that talks about just this. And so we're going to jump right in, but I'm going to skip the first 4 verses. The first 4 verses cover Jesus walking through the desert. Super exciting, I know, but we're going to skip those first 4 and jump into verse 5 where it says, So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. So Jesus is traveling north from Jerusalem up to a place called Galilee, and the fastest route is straight through this area called Samaria. And Samaritans live in Samaria, and they were a mix of Jews and Gentiles, and strict Jews would go around Samaria, or across the Jordan and up. It took about an extra week because they didn't want to be dirty. They didn't want to be defiled or unclean by the Samaritans. And so Jesus is walking through hot Israel and being fully human and exhausted, needs a break, needs some water. And that makes sense. I walk up the stairs to our condo, and I need water every time. That's not a joke. Cardio's overrated, though, so we'll get to that. It's fine. But it's noon, so it's definitely hot. And so he just needs to take a break. And then a woman walks up. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, Will you give me a drink? His disciples had gone into town to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, You are a Jew, and I'm a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink? For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. So all that's happened so far is Jesus has asked her for a drink. Keep that in mind. So this woman walks up at a time that culturally people were resting at because it's so hot at. They would go get water in the morning or in the evening when it's cool. And so what we can learn from that is that she's trying to stay away from people, which usually when we try to stay away from people, it's because we're hiding something. So something's coming that she's hiding, and usually when we hide, it's because of shame. And so she doesn't want people to see her. She doesn't want to be known. She doesn't want to be noticed. So she goes in the middle of the day when nobody's around. She's completely isolated in her shame. Nobody's let in. So much so that by going at that time, she has every wall and boundary up possible so nobody can get in because nobody's around. And then Jesus breaks every single cultural norm. He starts a conversation with her. She's a woman. And he's a Jew and she's a Samaritan. They didn't conversate. And the fact that a Jew would ask for a drink from a Samaritan's cup to touch something that a Samaritan touched was unheard of. So at this point, really, culturally, she has nothing to offer him. She can't even offer him the cup that she has. But instead, Jesus starts talking about what he has to offer. So Jesus answered her, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water. Sir, the woman said, you have nothing to draw with and the well is deep. Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank it from it himself, as did his sons and his livestock? And Jesus answered, everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life. The woman said, sir, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water. Through multiple translations of this and lots of commentaries that go along with this, she's being sarcastic here. She's copying attitude with Jesus. And I was going to insert a joke about women having attitude, but I enjoy living, so you guys can make your own joke. But Jesus offers her living water that whoever drinks it will never thirst again. And she takes him literally, which I do all the time as well. I don't fully understand what Jesus is saying, but it sounds so good that I want it, so I take it literally. She doesn't want to come back here again to draw water, which again alludes to all the shame that she's carrying. She doesn't want people to see her at all. But then Jesus keeps going, and he says, he told her, go, call your husband and come back. I have no husband, she replied. Jesus said to her, you are right when you say you have no husband. The fact is you have had 5 husbands, and the man you have now is not your husband. What you have just said is quite true. So just to put ourselves in her shoes, she comes down to the well at noon to dodge everybody she knows. Nobody knows the full story of her screwing things up and being rough around the edges. They just make it up in their mind, and so she avoids them. And then to put it in even more perspective, women couldn't divorce men during this time frame. Like it was practically impossible. Divorce could only happen if the man wanted it, or maybe she was barren, maybe she wasn't able to have kids, and so he shoves her out. Or he could have died, and so she has a pass to get out of it. We don't know exactly what it is, but what we know is it would have been impossible for her to do it herself. So 5 times she was pushed out of marriage for whatever reason. 5 times she was told, you're not enough. 5 times she was told, I'm done with you. You will never be good enough. You'll never be good enough to make this work. I don't even want to make this work. You don't make me happy. Leave. 5 times. And now she's with a 6th man who isn't even willing to commit to her, which at a time like this didn't happen. And he just wants to use her. And since she's with him, it appears that logically she probably likes that, because at least she gets some worth. At least she gets some value. And that's what she's bringing right now to the well. All of that right now to Jesus sitting at this well. She says, sir, I can see that you are a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you Jews claim that the place where we must worship is in Jerusalem. Woman, Jesus, first off, never say that. Woman, Jesus replied, believe me, a time is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know, for salvation is from the Jews. Yet a time is coming and has now come when the true worshipers will worship the Father in the Spirit and in truth, for they are the kind of worshipers the Father seeks. God is Spirit, we learned that last week, and his worshipers must worship in the Spirit and in truth. The woman said, I know that Messiah, called Christ, is coming. When he comes, he will explain everything to us. And then for the first time ever, Jesus declared, I, the one speaking to you, I am he. So she walks up with all this shame, and instead of letting people in, she throws up a religious wall and goes, well, no. Let me start asking you about these different things. Let me start asking you about this doctrine, about all this spiritual stuff. And I think we do that too. No, I go to church. I've got it all put together. I don't have to do that. Like, I'm good. And Jesus sees it, and instead of adding to that shame, like all the other people she's dodging probably would, he starts to paint a picture for her of what he is ushering in. That no one will need to travel anywhere to worship God. They can worship him in any place because of the Holy Spirit. She can worship him right now, right here, and all that looks like, all that has to be is her coming and showing up. I love that line in verse 23, yet a time is coming and has now come when the true worshipers will worship the Father in the Spirit and in truth, for they are the kind of worshipers the Father seeks. It's an active verb. Jesus is looking this woman in the eye and is like, look, lady, you don't have to have it figured out. You don't have to get it all figured out. You know the truth, and through the Spirit, you can worship God right here, right now. You don't have to clean yourself up. You don't have to go elsewhere first. You just bring all your shame. You bring all your junk right here. I want it. It's available. Just then his disciples returned and were surprised to find him talking with a woman. But no one asked, what do you want, or why are you talking with her? Then leaving her water jar, the woman went back to the town. She just drops her water jar and said to the people she's been dodging this whole time, come see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah? They came out of the town and made their way toward him. So it's in this moment that she realizes who Jesus is, and she drops everything. And maybe for the first time in a while, she has hope. And she doesn't drop everything and stay in her isolation. She drops everything and sprints to the people she's been dodging this whole time. She sprints to the people she's been hiding from. She's got something good to say.
I have a father who is an alcoholic, and he struggles to this day. The ripple effect of that was I heard messages growing up that I didn't matter, that he would rather choose to drink than spend time with me. My name is Crystal Yepes. I'm the Kids Ministry Director over at Flatirons Longmont. When I was in second grade, my dad and mom got a divorce, and my mom remarried 2 years later. My stepdad became that father figure that I never had. But that all changed when I was 16 years old. One morning, I got up early before anyone else in the house, and I was getting ready for my volleyball game. I showered and then went into my room and was getting ready, getting dressed in front of my dresser mirror. And then all of a sudden I saw this dark figure peering at me through the window, and my heart started beating out of my chest. All I could think of is I need to hide. I need to run into my closet. I shut the door of my closet, and I'm thinking to myself, I need to get dressed. I need to quickly tell my stepdad that some creep is looking at me through my bedroom window. So I did, and I bolted to my bedroom door and met my stepdad in the hallway, and I told him what happened, and he had this stone cold look on his face. And then he admitted to me that it was him. And all I could think is, why? Why would you do this to me? Because a father is supposed to protect their daughter. So everything changed after that. I lost my voice. I lost my confidence. I even changed my posture. I wanted to hide. I didn't want people to see me. And I kept telling myself that it's not a big deal. He didn't molest me, so it doesn't matter. Why do I feel this way? So that comparison piece just made it worse. The lies kept flooding in. I don't matter. All that matters is your looks. I became exhausted with wanting to be perfect all the time, put together, strong, put on a mask, because I felt that was the best way to deal with the anger that I suppressed for so long. After becoming a mom, I decided that, man, I can control their lives. I can control what's happening to people close to me. Through my control, then no one can hurt me. I just want to be perfect all the time because that feels safe, and I know that I'm working towards something. I'm afraid to speak up because if I say something that's not intelligent or maybe it wasn't relevant at the time, if I hear that, then it makes me feel that I don't have a voice and that I don't have anything to offer. So I shut down and I don't speak up. So the ones closest to me felt my brokenness, my anger, my sadness. And for the past 4 years, I've been on staff here at Flatirons, and I've been living with this tension of obediently accepting the call of what God's asked me to do here at Flatirons. but then also still have that tension of I'm still upset at God for not protecting me, for not showing up. And so through this series, and just recently also with therapy, I've decided to work on this anger. And I think the hardest part is inviting God into my mess, because I've been hiding from him for so long. And trying to be honest and tell him, hey, I'm angry at you. Why did you let this happen to me? But I think that as I am taking those steps forward to trust God, I'm seeing that he is listening to me, that there is hope, that there is healing, and that through my brokenness, he could use that for good to help other people. I'm hearing that it's okay to not be okay. And he's listening to me. And through this women's series, I'm hearing messages of who he created me to be. Because I don't know what it feels like to be the daughter of someone that's proud of me. I'm slowly learning, and I'm a work in progress, because trust takes time. But I'm learning that Jesus says he loves me. Jesus says that I matter to him. Jesus says that I can rest. And Jesus says I can just be me and stop trying so hard.
Many of the Samaritans from that town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. He told me everything I ever did. So when the Samaritans came to him, they urged him to stay with them for at least 2 days. And because of his words, many more became believers. What did this lady have to offer Jesus here? Not even a drink of water, nothing. When he asked for it, it never says if he ever even got that drink. And yet Jesus meets her right in the middle of all that shame. Like Crystal just said, he already sees it. Every piece of shame, every weakness, every sad or angry thought, he sees past my masks, and I'm tired of wearing them. Does anybody else here feel like that? Feel like Jesus would never take you as you are? Most people don't take you as you are, so why would he? This is a women's series, so I'm going to look at you women here. Any woman here feel like nothing they do is good enough? Nothing you have to offer is good enough. As a mom, you can't do anything right. Your kids are crazy. Nothing you do seems to help. Surely you can't post what other moms are posting on social media. They get it perfect. I suck. I've got nothing. I'm tired and I'm going to hide so nobody sees that imperfection. My house is a mess. My kids are psychotic. I feel like I can't do anything right. I'm passive. I just want a break, but I can't have one because they're dependent on me, but I've got nothing to give them. Or wives, you ever feel like you have nothing to offer? Marriage is hard. Most days are far from good. Happiness is something that I'm just too tired to even try to grasp for, so we coast and we hide and we put on masks and we let our shame take us over. But nobody's ever going to know that it's there. We're going to operate in plain sight and keep everybody at bay. We will go to the well at noon instead of letting anyone else see us. Am I enough sexually for my husband? Do I need to do more? What do I have to offer? Can I even have kids? Is that possible? Is the problem me? What can I do to make him stay? What can I do to prove that I'm worth something? Am I even worth something? Or women, you look around and every room you walk into is a comparison game. I'm not pretty enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not funny enough, I'm not in shape enough, I'm not dressed as nice or as cool as them. They look like their life is all put together and mine sure isn't. So I'm going to cut them out. I'm not going to let them close. I'll put a mask on to show them that I have it more put together. I'm in control here. I have more to offer than you. Well, what if I'm single? Will anybody ever want me? Am I worth wanting? I know myself, so I'll say nobody is going to want me. So I'm going to throw my walls up. What's wrong with me that nobody's chosen me yet? Or I've been divorced. Somebody's already told me I'm not enough. What do I even have to offer? Have I hit every insecurity yet? Every man in the room just realized it doesn't matter what your gender is. We all have that same question ticking in our brain. Am I enough? So what do you have to offer right now? But what do you have to offer Jesus right now? And the answer on this bright and cheery Sunday, Father's Day, is nothing. Jesus doesn't need us. He doesn't need you. He doesn't need the woman at the well. But he wants her. And he wants you. Noon was the physical representation of the mess in this woman's life. It perfectly encapsulated the shame. There's nobody around. I'm stuck in my head, hiding in plain sight. And in the middle of your mess right now, in the middle of every ounce of shame and insecurity that you have right now, Jesus is laying at the well waiting for you. So I have one question for you. What are you looking at to tell you that you are enough? What is it? Where do you hide, or where do you look to falsely tell you that you're enough? That's your noon. That's where you hide. That's where it's safe in the middle of the day. And that probably has even protected you in a way up until right now. And we can't stop hiding until we realize where we're hiding at. But for most of us, for me, it's not Jesus telling me that I'm enough. I don't look there first. But right in the middle of that, Jesus is sitting right there. At the very place where you isolate, at the place where your shame is and where your brokenness is. He's sitting there waiting for you for him to become the well of living water for you. Jesus doesn't need you to do anything. He can redeem everything. Every hardship this woman walked through was used by Jesus to bring the people to him that he wasn't going to reach in the first place. Samaritans weren't going to come talk to a Jew. And I don't know what you've walked through. I don't know what you came here with or what your hardships have happened to you. But Jesus looks right at you and goes, I've got this. I just need you as is right now. Wherever you aren't enough, wherever you aren't feeling enough, he looks at you and goes, I want you right now as is. Come here. I'm in this with you so you are enough. I just need you to show up. I know that as men, we constantly struggle with this question. And as the woman walks to the well, if I put myself in her shoes, I think she's struggling with that too. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, women, but I think you think the same thing. Am I a good enough woman? And if you're honest and you're right, you aren't. You aren't good enough. You aren't a good enough wife. You aren't a good enough mom. You aren't a good enough friend. You aren't a good enough woman. And men, you aren't a good enough man. You aren't a good enough husband, a good enough friend, a good enough dad, brother, whatever that is. You aren't, and I'm not. Now, before you guys get up and run out of here or boo me off the stage, I want you to hear me. In our own strength and in our own ability, we aren't enough. If we were, we wouldn't be in here right now. We wouldn't need Jesus. We wouldn't need to walk through these doors in the first place. We would have everything figured out and we would do it perfectly. Anybody in here do that? I don't. And Jesus looks at this woman like he looks at all of us, like he's looking at you right now, and says, without this living water, you will always be thirsty. This living water that I will give you is the only way not to thirst. In 2 Corinthians 3:5 it says, not that we are sufficient in ourselves to claim anything is coming from us, but our sufficiency is from God. The only way this woman bumps into Jesus in the first place, the only way that he's going to use her, is if she shows up to the well, recognizes who Jesus is, and realizes that he's been there with her this whole time. So that's my challenge for you. Show up. Keep showing up. Not at the well that tells you you're enough, that's not Jesus, not isolated, but show up where Jesus is, which is wherever you are right now in the deepest, darkest spot. He's right there waiting for you. Show up maybe for the first time in a while. Show up in your marriage. Show up for your kids. Show up in your friendships. Show up at work. Show up in your finances. Show up in your sexuality. Just show up. Let somebody know where you're at. And let Jesus take that shame. Stare at whatever it is you're walking through. Stare at that shame. Stare at your guilt. Stare at your insecurity. Stare at wherever you aren't enough. And stop operating at noon. Let somebody into it. And after you do that, run away from that place with Jesus. The well at noon was where she hid, and in that deep, dark spot, Jesus meets her, which is where he'll meet you, and he melts away her shame. Doesn't that sound good? He's ready to do that with you. So stop hiding at noon and just show up. We're going to switch things up a bit today. Usually we sing one song at the end. Today we're going to sing two. When Jesus is talking to her about worship and her just showing up, we're going to do that twice right now. Show up to the feet of Jesus with all that shame and all that doubt and all that insecurity and just lay it out there. And in this first song we're going to sing, I love this line. It says, the one who wore our sin and shame, everything you're about to dump at his feet, Jesus picks it up and puts it on. Now robed in majesty, the radiance of perfect love now shines for all to see. Let Jesus take that shame and let him shine in the darkest places of your life. And in the second song, it says, in my weakness, you are stronger. In my sorrows, you bring me joy. When I think through what I'm sorrowful about, I would love to have just an ounce of joy in there. And Jesus goes, I've got you. So let Jesus meet you in that weakness. Let him meet you in that sorrow. He already knows what it is. He already knows where you're isolating. So stand with me real quick. Every chair that you just heard click is somebody standing with you in that moment right now. Every sound you just heard click is somebody standing up that carried some amount of shame into this room. You aren't alone. So let somebody in. Pray with me real quick. God, this is not the happiest Father's Day message. This is not the most fun Father's Day message, but I need you to show up right now in my life in this way. And so I'm standing here waiting, thinking that I've showed up right now, so step in. Be waiting for me at the well when I step up. And all of us in this room, as we look at what this is, we've been thinking about what we're shameful about for the past 20 minutes. So meet us right there in the middle of it. And don't let go of us. And redeem us. Redeem that shame, redeem that hurt. And right now, just show us that you love us. We love you. We pray all this in your name. Amen.